Hello, good morning, afternoon, or evening, wherever you are, and welcome to another NerdTube discussion video. We are here today to talk about Earthbound.
Wah, 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 wah.
I'm joined by my fellow JRPG enthusiast, the Bearded Man Thing. How are you doing today, buddy?
Oh man, it's good to be here. I'm happy to be here doing this video. I do love some JRPGs.
Yeah, we got to talking one night over on his Twitch
Yep.
and figured out we both like Earthbound, so we decided that we needed to bring a video about it here to the NerdTube community. Um,
Yes, bringing it to the masses.
so we're going to start out with a little background on the game in case you're not familiar with it. Earthbound was a JRPG that was released in August of 1994 and localized release was in June of 1995 after spending about 5 years in development over at HAL Laboratory and Ape Coordinate. You want to tell us about the development staff, Bearded?
Oh yeah, absolutely. So you have, and I'm going to butcher this. I'm just going to go ahead and say it. The one of the main directors, Shigesato Itoi, was, I believe, he was kind of head of Ape Incorporated, and they had already released the first Mother game, which in Japan it was called Mother. He was author, musician, advertiser, and he, that those parts of his life greatly influenced this game. The game had been scheduled for cancellation on multiple occasions until he was joined by Satoru Iwata, who then became the lead programmer. Also followed in with composers Kiichi Suzuki and Hirokazu Tanaka. All in all, the team greatly influenced each other throughout the process of making this game and came together really well. I believe the Ape Incorporated guys did a lot of like the map development and helping with a lot of the composer development, whereas HAL Laboratories with Iwata came in to do a lot of the battle programming and the animations for movement inside the game.
That's really interesting. And see, I didn't know a lot of that, especially about Itoi's background. Having such a diverse background kind of explains a
Absolutely.
lot of the quirkiness of the game, the advertising background. They love to have billboards, especially joke billboards in the
Yes.
game world. And that makes a nice segue for us to talk about what exactly makes Earthbound so magical. There's a lot of things going on that make it unique
Yeah,
as an
absolutely.
RPG, and just create the overall charm. I mean, you start with the modern setting. This was
Hmm.
super unique at the time.
And
Uh,
I remember once reading a toy, you know, kind of had gone back and forth whether to make it a sequel to the first game and pick up right where the game left off, or for it to take place in the modern setting with whole new characters to kind of pick up the mantle of going to fight this great evil that's threatening the world.
yeah, and I think they made a good call going with a
Absolutely.
spiritual successor type game as opposed to a direct sequel. I've yet to finish Earthbound Zero, even though it's on the Switch Virtual Console, but I plan on definitely finishing that up sometime soon. Um, Another one of the things that was so awesome about the game was just the humor, the joke billboards. It was just this unique, quirky, sometimes gross humor. Um,
There's two sides of that coin too, because yes, it was humorous in the way that it presented itself oftentimes, but it also did a really good job of trying to impart lessons to the player as well. With an example of the lessons would be like Apple Kid, Orange Kid, not judging a book by its cover. Um, and then at the same time, while teaching them that lesson, the jokes behind I think it was, I can't remember which one. I think it was Apple Kid, maybe. Which one was
a-
the bad one?
Orange Kid is the prim proper kid scientist who's
Okay, so
actually he's a scam artist though. He
he's a
takes
scam
your
artist, right?
money.
Yes, and when his device falls apart, you're learning a lesson, but also the game kind of teases you a little bit, like don't you know, it's just a piece of junk in your inventory that you can't ever use again.
Right. And just the stuff like that, humor but incorporated with a moral is really part of the charm of it. You've got,
Oh, absolutely.
I mean, the NPCs all feel like living people. The world feels alive and
The
organic.
writing was really good as far as not using the same writing for multiple NPCs throughout the world. Pretty much everybody says something original.
Yeah, not all of it helpful at times, but
No.
it'd be really easy to only pay attention to writing good dialogue for people who are actually giving you the right directions to continue your quest. But having just people talk about random BS when you walk up to them on the street like they would talk to a little kid, it was just great. I
Yeah.
mean, it was very meta, which adds to the humor. And We're 10, we've never experienced meta humor before, and it took it to the next level. Um, it resonated well with American kids because of, the kind of precise uh sticking to the original script and the spirit of it, but picking the right spots to put the American type joke and the
Oh yeah.
American pop culture reference,
hmm
because the game is just steeped in Americana.
Yeah, absolutely. I think you pointed out when we were talking about doing this video the five being a Blues Brothers reference, and then I know we're going to get into it later, but different types of families that you have throughout America, it really did have a big representation of what it's like to be a kid in America, and it felt that way playing it. Now, saying that, even though it did resonate with a lot of the kids who played it when it first released, it actually did poorly in America when it was first released. I mean, they had a ingenious marketing campaign of like going along with the humor of the game. The marketing campaign was all about how this game sucks. This game is terrible. This is not going to be a very good game.
Right.
Um,
This game stinks, and right down to the scratch and sniff inserts in the included strategy
yeah,
guide,
and
which
I feel like that this game did poorly because parents in America didn't really know what was popular with their own kids. Like they either that or they just didn't want their kids playing a fart joke game. Like you know,
I
um,
mean, they had Master Belch, this just big pile of gross goo,
yeah,
like front and center in a lot of the advertisements and
yeah.
stuff. And
I feel like this game would have done better had the parents at the time weren't. I mean that was around the time period of all the ESRB rating stuff going on with like Tipper Gore and Mortal Kombat and
mhm.
Metal in America and Mothers Against uh, I forget whatever it was, but just all the propaganda that Tipper Gore came out with to get. She was trying to get a lot of this stuff banned, but all that happened was that we have the ESRB rating system that we have today.
Yeah, they were completely ineffective with that whole push, and we've seen the government swing the other way. They use, digital teaching tools for the army.
Right.
Uh,
I will say that we wouldn't have the ESRB and music rating system that we have today if it wasn't for Twisted Sister and frontman. Oh God, why am I blanking on his name? Oh man, this is the
D.
worst
Snyder?
time. Yes, yes. D. Snyder went into the panel with Tipper Gore and Al Gore on the panel in his full like metalhead gear and eloquently told them to shove it up their ass and that it's freedom of speech and you're not going to ban my music and these types of games. It was amazing. I love watching that video because he was just he was so well spoken on his defense against metal being banned and this type of content being just outright banned.
Yeah, that was a really interesting time for sure. But
Yeah. But again, I think that has to do with why it did poorly. But because it resonated with our age group so well over the years, it has developed this hardcore, like cult following as
mhm,
being one of the greatest games of our time period.
you get on just about any forum and ask somebody, what's the best Super Nintendo game, you'll always have people chiming in Earthbound.
Yeah.
A lot would put it at the best game.
And it's
Uh,
not going to be 100% of people, but it's going to be a very high percentage of people are going to be shouting to the rooftops that it's Earthbound.
and you don't that many people don't agree on a game unless there's something really special there. I mean, it
Absolutely.
used the oblique projection to give it that unique kind of pop-up storybook
Yeah,
aesthetic, and that it the graphics still hold up pretty well to this day. It
absolutely. Because
you
they're
can
not
replay.
straight 8-bit. They almost feel like hand drawn,
Mm-hmm.
right? Um, which, you know, there was a lot of hand drawn stuff at the time, but a lot of it was top down grid view. That was you know, the what was normal for most games of its type was to do the top down grid based view, and Earthbound ventured away from that with the oblique projection.
It was a brave development choice, but one that I feel really paid off. It adds a sense of
Absolutely.
depth to all the environments, and that just goes a long way in making the world feel real and alive. Um, so, you know, the game series is called Mother in Japan, and I think that's pretty strong evidence for a lot of the theming that we'll be discussing here coming up. But they to make more sense to American gamers, not confusing them. Well, what's this a sequel to? Since we never got the finished but unreleased version of
We didn't.
Earthbound
Yeah,
Zero.
we did not get Earthbound beginnings until much later, much later after the popularity of Earthbound had like soared.
And that translation is official. That was the game was completely localized and ready to release, and Nintendo of America just chose to not release it over here.
Mm-hmm.
Um, but so the Earthbound name that comes from a lot of different sources, right, Bearded?
Actually, I believe Earthbound is really just a because it's Mother that has a lot of sources for the naming. Um, because you have your connection to your mother in game, and that's true
Hmm.
for all in the series. You have your connection to Mother Earth, who's asking you to come out and defend the world and defend her from this alien invasion. You have the entire theme of the game. The game treats you very motherly in the fact that, and I probably won't put it as eloquently as I did when I was writing, but other games are like, go to the forest now. And they don't really, I mean, they're just telling you what to do, but Itoy wanted the game to feel like, it was kind of nurturing you along this path. So it's like, hey, be careful when you're going to the forest. Remember, if you get hurt, somebody's going to be sad, and I love you, right? Like, it very much talks to
Hmm.
you in a different way.
I
But
mean,
also, it's also based off of a John Lennon song called Mother, which I believe Itoy was a very huge fan of. But Earthbound, I believe, comes from the aliens, Gigas, everything is Earth coming towards Earth, being. Uh, I think Mothership. There's a little link there. The
mhm.
mothership is coming to destroy the world. Um, but yes, Earthbound stems from the aliens, the mothership, the invaders are Earthbound. They're coming.
Hmm. And that, that's just one of the many kind of themes, from sci-fi and monster movie, American
Yes,
cinema, that
yes,
pop up. Even from the beginning, the Gigas invades Earth looks like an
yes.
old 50s,
It is
flying saucer
very
movie.
1950s, like Orson Welles kind of dystopia, children's dystopia going on. Dystopia, dystopia, children's dystopia.
Hmm. It's it's just, all this colliding just made such a
It's
unique.
almost like if you turned War of the Worlds into a pop up storybook.
That's a very, very good way of putting it. That's a really apt description. Just real quick summary. But no, that the motherly nature that the game, treats you with, in the end credit sequence, you get the spoken dialogue, the, computer sounding dialogue. I love you.
Yep.
The game.
And let's even talk about this. How many other games do you remember from Super Nintendo to pre Super at the time period of having anything spoken at all?
Right?
Like we
So
didn't
that.
really get voiceovers in games until like the PlayStation.
Hmm.
Like we
So
got
I mean,
some stuff in the Nintendo 64, but it was mostly like one word out of a character, not like a full on dialogue like we did with the PlayStation.
right. It would take a lot of work and kind of coding,
And taking up a lot of
take,
space on the chips and
cartridge,
stuff.
yes. So I mean, you wouldn't make that design choice lightly at all.
No, no, that was, I
Uh,
feel the entirety of Earthbound was extremely intentional. Whereas like a lot of other games, accidentally did something amazing, and then later on it's like, oh, this worked because of this reason. But no, Mother was like planned out from beginning to end and intentionally was the way it was, and that's what makes it so great. And I
yeah,
feel like you can feel the intentionalism of what Atoy and Iwata wanted to accomplish with the outcome.
it definitely was conceived and executed as one whole idea instead of fumbling around as they went. And you can tell that from kind of the normal kind of feeling flow and progression as you adventure through the world. You get from a smaller town to a slightly bigger town. Now you're in the desert, the big city,
Oh,
summer resort town. You've got
this
winters. You go to a vast array
this
of geographical places, but it
yes.
it progresses in a way that helps you see that there is theming, and
Yes, absolutely.
that a lot of this gameplay stuff is trying to reinforce kind of themes and ideas that Itoy wanted to convey.
Oh, and what something you just said, it dawned on me. I forgot about this little tidbit of information, but he didn't want to have an overworld, right?
Hmm.
So, like with other games of the genre, the JRPG, you have towns that you could go in that were very, you know, orchestrated to look a certain way, and you had different locations you could go inside the town. But then when you left the town, there was just one giant overworld that you would use to cross to the next town, right? A toy wanted everything to be seamless, one giant uh, place where when you're moving from one location to the next, it doesn't feel like you're just going into some overworld that's not very detailed. Like everything had to be detailed and move seamlessly from one spot to the next,
And
whether it
that.
be from uh, Tucson to Three to the desert to the all the different locations. Um, just wonderfully drawn and well planned out as far as being original and not looking. Um, Help me out here. I'm looking for a specific word and I don't know what it is. Yeah, I know.
Doesn't look flat.
Yeah. It definitely keeps it from looking extremely flat. It looks
It's more immersive too. It can be
yes,
jarring to, leave the, location and go to an overworld map. And, we just kind of took it for granted that that's how an RPG worked because that's what had been done up to that point.
yes.
But Earthbound, was completely different, and you can see enemy avatars on the map, no random encounters.
Mm-hmm.
You could
Which the
escape.
first
I
one
mean,
did use random encounters,
yes, at a
but he
very high rate.
yes,
Oh my
yes,
lord.
but he
Two
wanted.
steps fight.
I believe it was that he wanted it to feel more realistic. Like I guess that's a good way of putting it. It looks more. It has a sense of, even though it's a story pop up art looking kind of game, it has more of a sense of realism that you're running into these enemies out in the wild. But also, when that comes to combat, you have enemies will chase you when they're as strong as you or a higher level. Later on in the game, when you get stronger, they start to run away because you're stronger than them.
You
There's
can
the
even get the
whole
the insta win mechanic. That I
you
found
could
that to be great. I
that was
mean,
awesome.
why?
If you exceed their, like if you are guaranteed to one shot them and go first, they just end the battle. They just give you all the rewards. Keep going. Let's speed this process up a little bit. But then, the AI system of the enemies running away. Uh, if the enemies run into you face first, you have a standard battle encounter. If you run into their backside, you have the advantage and you get to go a whole round before they do, and vice versa if they hit you in the back, which was indicated by the standard battle was a gray swirl. When you had advantage, it was a green swirl.
Hmm.
And if they had advantage, it was a red swirl, which at the time, nobody did that. The only thing that came close would I believe would be like Secret of Mana, but they didn't. You didn't exit into a battle world. You battled on the world. I
Hmm.
feel like Secret of Mana was more of a mix between JRPG and things like Legend of Zelda. It kind of combined the two into one.
Right. Kind of, one of the first action RPGs
Yes.
to come out of Square Enix. Back Square at the time.
Yeah, Squaresoft.
Reflexively say that at this point,
Oh man, Squaresoft.
right? Um, but all of these things come together to create this charming world,
Mm-hmm.
and this great game that just about everybody who plays it falls in love with it.
Yep.
But
And it's so unique. Like I think that's something that uh, we we need to include in the charm of it is how unique it is in every single aspect. Like it differentiates itself from every other title in the genre, even when it comes to like the rolling HP meter.
that
So
that's a great unique mechanic. I mean, look at your equips. I
yeah,
mean, the first
yeah,
helmet you can get in the game's your Mr. Baseball cap.
yep.
Uh, you fight with baseball bats and
Yep.
yo-yos. Paula wields a
Hmm.
frying pan. You don't have
Did
magic.
you
You
did you
get psychic
know
powers.
the rolling HP mechanic? They wanted something where when you took a large hit, you had time to try and heal yourself or
Hmm.
finish the battle, so it didn't just end it right away. But they did a trial run on a pachinko style HP system where when you took damage, it would come down and knock things off your health bar. But it didn't work for higher levels of damage. So that's when they came up with the odometer style rolling HP bar.
Which I loved that
Me
mechanic.
too.
It saved me from so many fights where that it should have
Yeah.
been over, but
Yeah.
get that heel off real quick, or just
Get a smash
smack
attack.
them.
Get a
Yes, it's like
smash
get
attack.
that clutch smash crit hit,
Oh, right
and
in the last second with like 20 HP left. Oh,
yeah, it's just that sort of nail biting. I mean, you don't. There's not a whole lot of games like that, you know.
oh
Um,
man.
so, but all this intentionalism led to, a series of themes that you can pretty clearly identify from the story and the way the story and the world is presented. And we've kind of identified three types of themes, right?
I believe so.
I'd say that the themes are, platonic or familial love,
Yes.
found family slash the power of friendship,
It's a
and,
huge one throughout the
and
entire game.
exactly, and then faith.
Hmm.
Um, So, I mean, to start with platonic or familial love, I mean, you start out, you get woke up by your sister, I believe. I mean, your
Yes,
sister and mother are the ones at home, and throughout the journey, they constantly help you. They're tied into core mechanics.
they
Tracy, your
are.
sister,
Hmm.
works for Escargo Express. You have to call her to manage your inventory because you have
Yep.
the limited inventory space on each of your characters. You save the game by calling your mother. Uh, you call your dad to get to, well, you call dad to save the game. I misspoke. Mom cures your homesickness. Just, I mean,
Another
they're
part
a
of why the
unique,
game's called Mother.
right? Another
Homesickness
unique,
as a status effect
right? So a
was.
unique stat debuff, which is
And it
just
just
great.
happens over time. Like you're gonna get homesick if you spend a lot of time trying to grind or sell items or beef up your party and you're not checking in with your family. Eventually, you that's what you end up with
Hmm.
because it's a time thing. It's not,
And I think one of the best things about RPGs is when the mechanics can tie in to the theming, and
Oh yeah,
it it makes you feel what it wants you to feel instead of telling you just flat out. Um, but you know, you move on to Paula's family when you get to Tucson, and they're just beside themselves over her abduction, and they're very worried about her. It's obvious that there's a loving relationship there.
yep.
Uh, but then you have some other types of home or family situations that are presented to us with the other characters, and that kind of you know shows a message of the legitimacy of various family configurations, to
Not
make
all
any young
good, not all
players
bad.
right.
You know,
So a player from any of them isn't going to feel like the game's dumping
leaving them
on them or
out.
make them feel bad. Yes, they'd feel
Yeah,
included and
yep.
represented.
Because I mean, with Ness, Dad's not home. We don't
Hmm.
know if Dad just works all the time or if Dad and Mom are split. Like we don't know for sure, but that kind of covers both bases where Dad's constantly working and providing for the family, and Mom's the one at home that the kids grow up with. Paula with both parents being at home because they work at home. I mean, they run the orphanage from their house,
Hmm.
and they are there all the time. They love their daughter dearly, and it shows. Um, you've got Jeff, who lives at the boarding school, and his closest relationship is with one of the, can't remember if it was a janitor or a teacher, and his roommate. There's two relationships he really, had.
Hmm.
Um,
It was the custodian and
yeah,
who gives you the keys, and his friend Tony, who's just incredibly supportive.
right. Yes,
Um,
absolutely.
and
Who's and not Doctor and Donuts and Donuts. Not even recognizing him the first time he shows up to speak with him. You know,
that
um,
that
I'm
one,
pretty
like,
sure
it
Jeff
stung.
can't even bring himself to call him dad. Like he accidentally almost calls him father or dad once, and the rest of the time it's just Dr. Endonuts.
Almost like his dad told him to call him that.
Right. Yeah.
You usually don't correct yourself as a child unless you're afraid of getting in trouble.
Right.
Then you get Pooh and his unique situation. He's, currently in the care of monks when we first
hmm
meet him. He's in his Moo training to try
Yep.
to
And I
unlock
don't
his psychic powers.
I don't remember well enough if his parents are gone or if they sent him there to learn this new training, but they're pretty much not there. But he also grew up with the monks and doesn't miss them either. He very much has more of a relationship with the monks than he does his own parents.
Yeah, and I think they were intentionally ambiguous about that and
Right.
also about Ness's father to
Yes.
allow for interpretation by the player so they could insert themselves in more easily and really play the role.
Yeah. And this is a little bit of a tangent, but it makes sense. It will make sense when I'm. So a lot of the better writing in the history of like video games and books and novels and series, a lot of the ones that become more popular and are more easily for people to uh, fall into and be absorbed in, they have that main character that is a lot more ambiguous. As an example, Harry Potter. Harry is very much, you don't know much about Harry. You know a lot about everybody else, what their favorite this or that is, or but Harry's a flatter character than everyone else in the game or book because it's much easier to put yourself in the shoes of a character that's flatter. You just little tidbits of them, not a lot of them, so that you can the reader or the person playing the game can make assumptions about the character that is more linked to their own psyche and persona.
That's a very good point. It's a very good point that I never noticed about Potter, to be honest with you, but
Right.
you're right.
I mean,
There's
he's
very
not
few details
well
given.
rounded as a well rounded as far as described as his physique. You know what his hair looks like? It's messy. But how long is it? Everybody just assumes they know how long it is from the artwork at the beginning of the book, but it's just long and messy. It could have been, they don't describe it as well as they describe some of the other characters' visual appearance.
Um, so the final theme that we identified is faith.
hmm
And that's, you'd think that that wouldn't necessarily jive in a sci-fi RPG, but it works surprisingly well, and it mostly revolves around the character of Paula and you, the player. Paula has the pray command, obviously, and it can save your butt with the light heals or
hmm
many other just kind of almost seemingly random positive effects. Um, the end of the game, the only way you end up, surviving your encounter with Gigas is Paula prays first and, reaches out psychically to the, everyone you've met through the entire game, tying this, story and world back together. And they pray for the party. And then it beseeches you for the player yourself.
hmm
And
And
the player praised, Giga starts taking massive damage. And so you're finally like, why did it want to know my name in the beginning? So that's when you find that out. And, part of that meta.
oh yeah, I would say that in Japanese culture, and I don't know a lot about it, but a little bit. I mean, you pray to your ancestors, you pray for their souls, you pray to the deities. There's all sorts of types of faith in Japanese culture, and I feel like faith is you could go much further with the faith theme where they have faith in each other. Ness has to have faith in the bee that the bee is not just leading him astray, that he's sending him on this adventure to save the world, faith that he can actually accomplish this
Hmm.
um,
Faith in your
huge
found
endeavor.
family.
Yes. When Paula and Ness are in the trap, Belch's trap, Paula reaches out to Jeff and just has to have faith that he's coming, coming to save them, coming to free them.
I remember being terrified when I got to that part. Three, I mean, it just the mood and the music and the dark tone.
Yeah. Oh,
I,
yeah.
I was 10. So, I mean, this was it, it was it was spooky
It
for
is
sure.
a different brand of game, and that big ups for the art team and the composers for building that kind of atmosphere in different parts of the game, because each world, each town and location in the game has a completely separate atmosphere. Like, and just the way they were able to pull that together with such a smaller team. Like, it was not a huge team that put this game together. Like,
No, it was
HAL Studios and at the time it was Ape Inc. Now they're Creatures Inc. But yeah, it wasn't a huge team.
and you can tell that they enjoyed working together. It's such a kind of the product is full of life, and
Mm-hmm.
you don't make that when working with people that you don't like working with.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm pretty sure later on, and this they both teams, HAL Laboratories and again Ape Inc., who is now Creatures Inc., have worked closely together since then. Like, they've worked on several projects together. A lot of your side story Pokemon games they worked
Mhm.
on. Um, You've got HAL Industries was, I believe, the team that did Smash Brothers originally. I think they've split off and have their own team for Smash Brothers now.
Uh,
But the original Smash Brothers, I'm pretty sure, was developed by HAL Industries, and
let me
that's part of the reason why Ness was included in the game.
yes.
Which,
I mean,
Mother 2 was phenomenal in Japan. It did really well in Japan. Ness and Paula and them, they weren't like not well known, but at the time when Smash Brothers came out in America, there was a smaller cult following of Earthbound. And
and
then Smash Brothers was a huge hit here, and everybody's like, "Who the fuck is Ness? Who is Ness? What
but
is
if
this
you
character? This
knew,
character is awesome."
you knew, and you were
Yeah,
so excited, you popped out and you got it. I mean, and Smash became, well, it was a smash. I mean,
yeah.
one of the first competitive
I actually feel
console
like that's
games.
why they called it Smash Brothers Melee. Was there? I think they named it after the Smash, because the Smash Attack from um, the Mother series.
It's a very there. That's a good
Mm-hmm.
possibility. Um,
Man, so
so
good.
I love it, and you know, I didn't want to just come on here and gush and make a love letter. We wanted to,
I
provide
mean,
some
that's
topical discussion, but
we've done some of that. Yes.
no, but it has a place for sure,
Oh yeah.
and you know, we want to try to find the good in things. I know we're not afraid to point out the bad around here, but it's much more fun to
Let's talk
talk
about
about
the
stuff you
bad.
genuinely you
Let's talk
enjoy.
about the bad when it comes to Earthbound. And I'm challenging you here because there's not much that's bad. Like, I can't really say that there's that much at all that's bad about Earthbound. I honestly, I'm not saying there's not anything bad. I can't think of anything bad. Let's say that. I can't think of anything bad currently. So I'm like racking my brain. Is there something that could be considered a downside to Earthbound?
The biggest gripe I've seen on the internet is inventory management. Um,
Okay.
that a lot of people don't like, that you have to use Escargot Express, that your items don't stack, that it matters who is holding what. But
Yeah,
it
I
just
can see that.
that adds a level of strategy and,
It does.
forethought
I,
to the game.
I will say that I agree with them because, and I get where they were going. You're a bunch of kids with backpacks, and you can only fit so much in your backpack.
Hmm.
That's where it comes from. I love how they built in the Escargo Express, but only being able to move so many items at one time
Yes, that.
feels bad. Like I feel like there is a level to realism, right? Where sometimes when you get a little too real, it detracts from the enjoyment of the game. Like I don't enjoy inventory management. I feel like every character in every video game should have a magical bag of holding just because they're in a video game and they can hold whatever item they want and however many items of them that you want. I know I just got done playing Final Fantasy 3 and I'll put it up on YouTube eventually, but they that was one of the quality of life changes because the original did have inventory management.
Hmm.
You could not fit everything into your bag. You had to summon the fat chocobo in certain spots, not everywhere, not anywhere, but only in certain locations like the chocobo forest to be able, because it could store whatever, but you could not. So you
Right.
had to change things out into the fat chocobo. I hate inventory management. It is the bane of my existence. If I can't carry everything, I'm not having a bad time. I don't hate the game, but I'm also a little irritated by it.
I could probably point out one other thing that I think the game could have maybe done better, but
Okay.
I understand it was to keep consistent with the first game, and that's the kind of first person, just simple text box combat during fights. That Dragon Quest
Ah,
style fight, that early Dragon Quest
gotcha.
style fighting.
Okay. All right.
You don't see your characters, there's not much animation. So I mean, the most dynamic thing in any fight, usually besides your PSI powers, is the big old smash hit and
Yeah.
the scrolling battle text. But you know the fights are a little flat presentation wise, but what it's missing there, it makes up for in difficulty
Yep.
and requiring strategization.
I do
Uh,
feel like there's something to be said that they used up a lot of the space on the cart for everything else.
mm-hmm.
Like the whole world, the not having an overworld, like a one single overworld from town to town. That I feel like there's a lot of space being taken up by the soundtrack, the overworld, not the overworld, the maps, the artwork for each town and area. Um, I'm not saying that they couldn't have done better, but there's a chance that yes, they're trying to make it feel like a sequel to the first game, but also they could have just been running out of space and not been able to do that. Just for devil's advocate's sake, you know what
Right.
I'm saying?
And I think it was only a 24 meg cart. I think it was
You're
developed and
correct.
released before that. Yeah, they didn't have 32
Yes.
meg carts yet.
When they
And
were developing it, they switched, I think, within the first year and a half from 12 to 24. And I don't know how close the release was to the 32 meg cart, but yes, they were working with 24 megs when they were building the game for most of the build of the game.
that's a hell of a size limitation.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
Um, but I mean, we could probably go on all day. We barely even touched the music. Uh, that could be its whole other video. Once I can
I'm a
act,
huge fan of soundtracks. Like that's what I'm loving about going back and replaying the Pixel remasters is like I love a good video game soundtrack, and Earthbound has a wonderful soundtrack.
it does lots of different styles and genres of music represented
Yes.
from all around the world, just continuing that theming of, that journey around the world to
Hmm.
find new family and friends and, making it
And
feel like you're
it
actually
also differentiates between, sometimes people are your friend and sometimes people just act like they're your friend and they're not. With
right,
we
Pokey.
didn't even I forgot to mention Pokey. Yes, but from the beginning, he's like, you have to come help me save my brother, and his family treated you like garbage, and that his your father should be giving them money because he makes so much money, and like, what's another good example? The owner of one of the nightclubs being an evil bastard and
Right, he's
keeping the
taking
runaway
advantage.
five, taking advantage of them. Not
Um,
everybody's a good person.
like liar, exaggerate. He dug up the Mani Mani statue, and that's almost an inciting incident. It's the second inciting incident other than the meteorite crash.
Hmm.
Uh, but then you get to Berglund Park and Dredson. I'm forgetting the character's name, but the guy who runs Berglund Park is at first he's malaligned. He's made out by the community to
Everybody's
be a
making him to
bad,
be a villain, but he's
and he's
almost fatherly towards Paula.
right. He helps you, and you know the game definitely has a lot to say about not judging a book by its cover, and things aren't always as they seem.
Yep.
But no, we'll maybe come back for a video just about the music. After I've mastered the Onet theme, I can play the intro for us.
Oh, that would be cool. What are you gonna
Right?
play it on?
Yep, play the video on with it. That's what we'll do. Um,
What are you gonna play it on though? A
oh, my
piano,
guitar. Sorry.
guitar? Okay, right on, right on.
Uh,
I can dig it.
they are fun, and we could talk about this game all day.
Yes,
Um,
we could.
but I think we'll wrap it up here. Thank you all for joining us. If you enjoyed this video, give us a like. If you haven't subscribed yet, subscribe to NerdTube. We're the best channel that you've maybe sort of kind of heard of. Um, if you disagree with us, let us know in the comments down below. Bearded, let me know where can we find you when you're not on NerdTube.
When I'm not on NerdTube, you can find me at the Bearded Man Thing on YouTube. You can also find me as the Bearded Man Thing on Twitch, Instagram, and Twitter. If it's on Twitter, it's at TB Man Thing. It's also at TB Man Thing on Facebook.
Awesome. You can also find me over at twitch.tv on Gilder37. I play WoW and JRPGs over there. Um, so maybe come show us some love, join us in the
Yeah,
stream. Love to
come
talk with you about games.
come hang out. Like, what are you thinking? Where have you been at? Get over there right now.
But first, make sure you like, comment, subscribe, and smash that bell button. This has been a NerdTube presentation, the best channel you've maybe sort of kind of heard of. Thanks for joining us. So, if you're not familiar with the game and just clicked on it to learn about it, and just because you love our content so much,